Hey everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how I made this really cool succulent frame box from scratch. I think it came out really awesome, and let's get started. So first of all, I always start with a drawing or a plan of what I'm gonna do. I take all my measurements where it's gonna fit. Next, I'm starting to create the box. I'm gonna cut 4 pieces of wood. Of course, I'm using all pressure treated wood since this is gonna be watered and having my plants that retain moisture, so you definitely want to use pressure treated wood. I'm using my Ryobi nail gun to make sure that I nail all the pieces correctly, and then I'm going to take my measurements and cut the back piece or back portion of the box. I'm going to go ahead and nail that in, make sure it's secure, and then I'm going to get to start creating the dividers inside the box. I'm going to cut some pieces. You got to make sure you measure it correctly here, and you want it to be centered. So take your time doing this part, and then you're going to go ahead, once you have it perfect, nail it all in, and you should have nice looking box. Right after that, I'm going to go ahead and put this is a weed barrier. You can find this in Home Depot or pretty much any hardware store. I'm cutting it into pieces, making sure that I seal the boxes. This is just going to help retain the moisture and also protect the wood a little bit. So I took my time. I use my handy stapler, just kind of stapling it all over. Take your time on this too. Make sure you get a good staple in there, because this is where the plants are going to be, and all the soil is going to be put. So here I'm finishing it up. I'm all done. And now I'm going to start creating the actual frame. So here I'm using the 45-degree on the circular saw, making sure that I get nice cuts. This is probably one of the hardest parts of the whole project, making sure you get nice smooth cuts. I did make a mistake here. As you can see, one couple pieces were too long, so I had to take it back and readjust it and make sure that the table saw made nice clean lines. This is probably always a hard part to make nice joints, so it took me a little bit of time, but got it perfect. Then I went ahead and used the nail guns to get all the corners together and make nice clean corners. As you can see, everything is nice and square and ready to go on my actual box. I'm gonna use the nail gun again and nail all that together. Next, I'm gonna put a nice little frame in the inside. I want to cover that area, so I'm taking some measurements, making sure that I get a nice clean cut. Went back to my table saw and cut those pieces. Everything fit perfectly, and we have perfect little squares. I'm gonna nail everything down with the Ryobi nail gun. If you don't have one of these, it's great. Last, I'm just putting on some of the joints that didn't come out perfect how I like it. I'm just using some wood filling. I'm gonna let that dry overnight, or at least for 4 hours, and I'm gonna finish nailing the rest of the weed barrier into these little boxes. Make sure everything is nice and clean. Now that I have all the moldings set up, I think it came out pretty nice. Following day I'm here painting with a wood stain. I've used this wood stain before. I really like it, and I always apply a good heavy amount at the beginning, and then later I use a cloth to kind of wipe down the excess, and it gives it a really nice, like, rustic looking gray color to it. I kind of like the rustic look. I do have a lot of grays, as you can see in the background of my yard, so it's going to go really well. This is the stain that I use. It's called Weathered Gray. You can find this in Home Depot. I love it. I use it on a lot of stuff. I used it in the inside bar that I made one day. It came out really awesome. I'm gonna finish painting all the sides and edges, just because this is gonna be on a wall where you can kind of see the sides of it if you're walking next to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish all that, let it kind of dry a little, and then you're gonna see I'm gonna get a nice cloth and wipe that down. Next, this is the clear satin cover that I put on it. This is gonna help seal everything in. This is an oil-based one, but I think you could use a water-based one too, and it works just as good. Here I'm just wiping all the excess again, leaving it nice and smooth, and let it dry. Next day I came back, and this part's gonna give more of the weathered look. I have my sander. I'm sanding it down, kind of taking all that excess, let the wood come out a little bit, the wood grain of the actual wood come out a little bit, and it makes it look really nice. This is gonna help with the look and the feel of the rustic side of it. I'm wiping it down, and then next, finally I have everything ready to go. I spent a whole day with my wife, took my 10-month-old and picked out a bunch of succulents. It was pretty cool. Came back home, and this is me installing these in each little square. This probably was the most time-consuming part of the whole project, making sure that they all fit in perfectly. I did use some plastic mesh to kind of keep them down. I kind of showed that in the previous video, but here I'm putting it all in. As you can see, it takes me quite a while to get it all in there. You definitely want to take your time on this part to make sure that you get all the plants in there the way that you want it, and you don't want to mess them up while you're putting them in. So here I'm kind of taking my time, doing it one by one, trying to figure out where each one looks good. We're almost done. I'm gonna start on the second part, and as you can see, I got all the succulents in there. Came out really, really nice. I didn't have to buy any soil. I used the same soil from the succulents that came in, and I think it's coming out pretty good at this time. That's the mesh I was using, kind of sticking that mesh in there, fitting them in between, making little rows inside the boxes, and using that mesh to kind of hold down the soil, and everything fit pretty nice. I would recommend before you do all this to drill some drainage holes, just so when you fill it up with water, some of the water comes out. Next, I went ahead and used these cables. I bought some of these. I guess this is from a frame store. You can find them. But yeah, I used that wire, and voila. I think it came out pretty nice, pretty badass, and hope you enjoyed the video and learned how to make this cool picture frame. Don't forget